in the far reaches of the galaxy, where stars shimmered like scattered jewels, lay the star system of Gyr, a place known for its advanced civilizations and proud alien races. Among them was the noble family of the planet Varelia, home to the royal bloodline that ruled with wisdom and power. But within this world of gleaming towers and polished customs lived Princess Lyra, a figure unlike any other in her family or society. From the moment she was born, she was different not in her looks, but in the way she carried herself and the traditions she held close to her heart. Unlike the rest of the Varelians, who prized cleanliness, order, and appearance above all, Lyra clung to the ancient tribal ways passed down by her ancestors. She wore rough fabrics and wild braids that tangled freely, the scent of the sacred herbs she carried always surrounding her like a cloud. To the high society elites, she was not a princess, but a proboma, smelly, dirty reminder of a forgotten past that many wished to erase. The nobles whispered behind her back, their words sharp and full of scorn. They called her names meant to shame her, and they avoided her presence whenever possible. Most painful of all, when the time came for marriage alliances critical for maintaining peace and power, no alien noble wanted her hand. They feared the scandal her unkempt ways might bring to their carefully crafted reputations. Invitations to social gatherings stopped arriving, and once warm smiles turned cold and distant. Even her closest relatives kept their distance, afraid that her presence would tarnish their own standing. Each rejection carved deeper into Lyra's heart, but she refused to change who she was. In her quiet moments, she dreamed of another world, one where she might belong, where her spirit would be accepted rather than judged. She imagined a place where kindness mattered more than appearances, and where people saw her for her strength, rather than her scent or her clothes. But for now, she was trapped in the golden cage of royalty, surrounded by cold faces and whispered disdain. She walked the palace halls alone, the weight of loneliness pressing down on her like a heavy cloak. Despite the riches and splendor, Lyra felt emptier each day, like a star fading in the vast darkness of space. The other aliens treated her like a shadow, something to avoid or pity. Sometimes late at night she would retreat to the hidden gardens, a secret place where the wild plants grew untamed, and the air was thick with the fragrance of her sacred herbs. There, beneath the soft glow of twin moons, she allowed herself to hope. Hope that one day someone would see her true self. Hope that her story would not end in sorrow. And hope that far beyond the stars, someone was waiting, someone brave enough to accept her, not despite her differences, but because of them. Unknown to her, that moment was closer than she could imagine, and the universe was already beginning to change in ways no one expected. The Galactic Council, a powerful group made up of many alien races, had long kept peace in the star systems by choosing ambassadors who could speak with wisdom and fairness. When the council decided to send a new ambassador to the Gyr system, they selected Captain Marcus Hale, a human known across several worlds for his calm nature and open mind. Marcus was not like most aliens. He came from Earth, a small blue planet filled with many different cultures and ideas about acceptance. As his sleek ship entered Gyr's atmosphere, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and curiosity. He had heard the stories about this place, a world of elegance, strict rules, and secret tensions, and he was ready to face whatever came. However, before he even met the royal family or stepped foot inside their shining palaces, Marcus began to catch whispers among the crowd. In the busy halls of the spaceport and in the quiet corners of government offices, people spoke of a princess, one who was not like the others. She was said to be rejected by her own people, an outcast because of her rough ways and unusual customs. Some called her smelly and unclean. Others avoided mentioning her at all. Marcus listened carefully, not judging, but feeling a strange pull of interest. Why would a royal, someone born to power and respect, be treated with such coldness? Thoughts wandered to Earth, where people from many backgrounds found ways to live together, even if they were different. Could this princess be like one of those rare souls who refused to bend to unfair expectations? When the time came for a grand formal event, one of those gatherings where nobles showed their status and power. Marcus entered the palace with quiet confidence. The hall was filled with dazzling lights, alien music that echoed through the marble chambers, beings dressed in shimmering robes that told stories of wealth and tradition. Marcus moved through the crowd, greeting dignitaries, and noting the sharp glances that followed him. Then, in the far corner of the room, his eyes found her. Princess Lyra stood apart from the others, her wild hair falling over her shoulders in untamed braids. Her clothes simple and worn, carrying the scent of herbs that most would find strange. But what caught Marcus's attention was not her appearance, but the light in her eyes, strong, defiant, yet filled with a quiet sadness. He saw how the nobles avoided her, how they whispered behind their hands and cast judgmental looks, but Lyra did not seem to notice. Instead, she held her head high, proud of who she was. Marcus felt a sudden urge to approach her, to break the barrier of silence that surrounded the princess. He stepped forward and bowed slightly, offering a warm smile. "Princess Lyra," he said gently, "I have heard much about you." Her eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment she seemed unsure how to respond. No one had spoken to her with kindness in a long time. The whispers stopped, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Marcus continued, "I see more than what others say. I see strength and courage." Slowly, Lyra's lips curved into a shy smile, a flicker of hope shining in her gaze. They spoke quietly, exchanging stories of their worlds, their hopes, and their fears. Marcus learned of her love for her ancient customs, her longing for acceptance, and the loneliness she endured. Lyra listened as he spoke of Earth, a place where differences were celebrated and where kindness often changed lives. Their conversation was interrupted several times by curious onlookers, but neither seemed to mind. In that moment, a connection formed, fragile but real. For Marcus, this meeting was more than a diplomatic duty, was a chance to show that acceptance could cross even the widest gaps of culture and tradition. For Lyra, it was a glimpse of a future where she might finally belong. As the night wore on and the stars twinkled outside the palace windows, whispers of the human ambassador's unusual kindness began to spread. Some aliens were shocked, others curious. But all could sense that something new was stirring, something that might challenge the old ways of Jir forever. Marcus left the event with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that his journey on this strange and beautiful planet was only just beginning. And Lyra, once a lonely princess shunned by her own people, felt a spark of hope that warmed her heart, like the light of a distant sun. The story of the rejected alien princess and the human ambassador had only just begun. But it promised to change everything. After their first unexpected meeting at the grand event, Marcus and Lyra found themselves drawn together by a force neither fully understood. The walls that had once surrounded them, walls built by years of suspicion, judgment, and cultural differences, began to crumble as they spent more time in each other's company. Marcus, the human ambassador from a distant planet called Earth, was fascinated by Lyra's stories of her people's ancient tribal ways, the customs and rituals that had shaped her identity and given her strength despite the rejection she faced. Lyra spoke with pride about the traditions her ancestors had passed down, how they lived close to nature, how every plant and animal had meaning, and how courage was measured not by appearance, but by the spirit inside. Marcus listened intently, realizing that her world, though so different from his own, held lessons about resilience and honor that transcended any technology or status. In return, Marcus shared tales of Earth's vast diversity, a planet where many different cultures, languages, and beliefs existed side by side. He told her about cities filled with people from all over the universe, where acceptance and individuality were celebrated rather than feared. He described how people on Earth valued kindness and understanding, and how those values had helped his own people grow stronger together despite their differences. Lyra's eyes brightened as she imagined a place where she might be truly free, where being herself would be enough. As they continued to meet in secret, their conversations deepened, and so did their connection. They talked about dreams, fears, and hopes for the future, both personal and for their worlds. Marcus began to see beyond the surface judgments that Others had placed on Lyra, recognizing the brilliance of her mind and the warmth of her heart. Lyra, for the first time, felt truly seen and valued. But their growing bond was not without challenges. The strict traditions of Lyra's people and the rigid expectations of the alien nobility meant that any sign of closeness between the princess and a human was dangerous news. Rumors began to circulate, spreading through the palace like wildfire. Some viewed Marcus's friendship with suspicion, or worse, as a threat to the established order. Others whispered about the possibility of change, though no one dared say it openly. Despite the tension, Marcus and Lyra refused to hide their friendship. They knew that if they could learn from each other, then perhaps their peoples could too. This belief gave them courage to face the growing obstacles. They explored hidden gardens and quiet libraries, shared meals of strange and familiar foods, found comfort in each other's company. Marcus admired how Lyra never lost her spirit, even when confronted with cruelty. And Lyra marveled at Marcus's ability to remain calm and hopeful in a world so foreign to him. Together they challenged the deep prejudices of their societies, planting seeds of hope where before there had only been fear. Their relationship became a symbol not of rebellion, but of understanding and unity. Slowly, others began to notice. Young members of the alien court, tired of old restrictions, started to approach Lyra and Marcus, curious about their ideas and open to the possibility of change. The princess, who was once called Smelly and Dirty, began to inspire. Those who had felt forgotten or judged, the human ambassador who had arrived as a stranger was becoming more than a diplomat. He was a bridge between worlds. Yet even as hope blossomed, the shadows of tradition and power loomed large. Forces within the alien elite conspired to stop this growing alliance, fearing the loss of control and the upheaval of their customs. Marcus and Lyra knew that their journey was only beginning, and that standing together meant facing not only the judgments of others but the danger that such change could bring. But neither was willing to turn back. For in their hearts, they carried the belief that true strength came from embracing differences, and that the future of Giron, perhaps the galaxy itself, depended on the courage to cross cultural boundaries and build new paths forward. News travels fast in the glittering halls of Gir, where every whisper carries weight and every glance holds meaning. The unusual friendship between Marcus Hale, the human ambassador from Earth, and Princess Lyra, the rejected outcast of the alien nobility, soon became the talk of the court. What started as hushed conversations soon turned into heated debates within the alien council chambers. The council, a group of powerful and proud leaders, saw the bond between the human and the princess, not as a hopeful alliance, but as a dangerous threat to their carefully maintained social order. For generations, their society had been built on strict rules about status, appearance, and purity of tradition. To them, Lyra represented a scandal, a blemish on their otherwise perfect lineage. Marcus, an outsider, had no right to get close to her, they insisted. Furious and fearful of change, the council convened an emergency meeting, their voices rising in anger as they discussed what to do. They demanded that Marcus abandon Lyra immediately, warning him that any further association would bring serious consequences, not just for him, but for the delicate peace between their worlds. The weight of their threat was clear: comply or be cast out, possibly worse. When Marcus received the council's ultimatum, many expected him to withdraw quietly, to protect his position and safety. But Marcus was not like the others. He had come to Gyre not just as a diplomat, but as a believer in understanding and acceptance. Standing before the council in their grand chamber, he looked at each member with calm determination. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear, carrying the conviction of someone who had faced prejudice but refused to bow to it. He spoke of honor, not measured by appearances or tradition alone, but by the strength of character and the courage to stand for what is right. He defended Lyra's dignity, pointing out that her true worth lay in her spirit, her kindness, and her unwavering pride in who she was. Marcus reminded the council that history was full of stories where change came from those who dared to be different, and that clinging to old prejudices only weakened their society. The chamber fell silent, the council members exchanging uneasy glances. Some were visibly angry, others unsure how to respond. Marcus's words had planted a seed of doubt in their minds. To many in the court, this was an unexpected challenge. A foreigner defending an outcast princess against centuries of rigid custom. But Marcus was not alone. Outside the council chambers, whispers of support began to spread among the younger members of the nobility and the common people alike. Many saw in Marcus and Lyra's friendship a chance for a new beginning, a break from the cold judgments that had long divided their world. Lyra herself stood with Marcus during the public hearing, her head held high, her eyes shining with quiet strength. She spoke not of anger or revenge, but of hope and unity. She shared her vision of a future where differences were celebrated, not feared, and where kindness bridged divides between worlds. The courage of their joint stand sent ripples through the court and beyond, yet not all were pleased. Powerful factions within the alien elite began plotting to undermine Marcus's influence and discredit Lyra. Fearing that their courage might inspire rebellion, threats lurked in shadowed corridors, and spies watched their every move. But Marcus and Lyra's bond only grew stronger in the face of danger. They knew that true change required sacrifice and bravery, and they were prepared to face whatever came next. In the midst of political tension and social unrest, their story became a symbol, a beacon that challenged the rigid walls of tradition and offered a glimpse of a more inclusive future. As the council meeting ended without a clear resolution, it was clear that the struggle for acceptance was far from over. But one thing was certain: Marcus and Lyra had already changed the course of history, showing that honor and worth could not be confined by narrow customs or shallow judgments. The galaxy watched with bated breath, waiting to see what this unlikely alliance would bring next. The courage shown by Marcus, Hale, and the unwavering pride of Princess Lyra did more than just challenge the alien council. Ignited a spark of hope that spread through the hearts of many across the planet, Varelia, and beyond. As news of their stand against tradition traveled through the star system of Jir, it stirred something deep within those who had long felt silenced or cast aside. Among the youth, whispers turned into conversations, and conversations grew into movements. The rigid social structures that had defined their lives for centuries began to show cracks as more outcasts and young nobles stepped forward, inspired by the bold example set by the human ambassador and the rejected princess. These young voices demanded change, asking why worth should be measured by outward appearance or old customs rather than the strength of character and the content of one's heart. They spoke openly about diversity, inclusion, and the power of unity. Slowly, these ideas gained ground, spreading like wildfire through the once stifling halls of power and the quiet corners of everyday life. For many, Lyra's acceptance by Marquesa Human from a distant world became a powerful symbol, a beacon that showed change was possible even in a society as traditional as theirs. No longer was she seen simply as the smelly, dirty princess, but as a leader who had risen above rejection to become a force of hope and courage. Her story encouraged others who had been marginalized to stand tall, to embrace their unique qualities, and to believe in a future where they would be valued. As the alien society began to shift, the old ways did not vanish overnight, but the winds of change were undeniable. The council, once united in opposition, found itself facing pressure from within their own ranks. Some leaders who had resisted the idea of change now reconsidered, realizing that adapting could bring strength rather than weakness. Discussions about reform filled the chambers, and new policies promoting fairness and acceptance slowly took shape. Marcus and Lyra's relationship became a bridge, not just between two individuals, but between entire cultures, showing that true connection transcended species and traditions. The princess, once isolated and alone, found herself at the center of a movement that celebrated individuality and spirit over shallow judgments. With Marcus's steady support, she traveled across the planet, meeting with communities and listening to their stories.
Hi.
Together, they helped build a new vision for Gira Vision, where every person could find respect and belonging, no matter their past or appearance. The journey was not without challenges. Those who clung to the old ways resisted fiercely, fearing loss of control and the breakdown of society's order. But the growing support for Marcus and Lyra made it clear that change was inevitable.
Wow.
Their courage had lit a fire that could not be extinguished. In time, the people of Gyr began to see the truth in the message, that acceptance and kindness were the true marks of a strong and wise society. Lyra's name became synonymous with hope and renewal, a reminder that sometimes acceptance comes from the most unexpected places, even from across the stars. Her journey from rejection to leadership inspired generations, teaching that the courage to be oneself could transform not only one life, but an entire world. As the twin moons rose over Varelia, casting a gentle light on a planet waking to a new dawn, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter. For in the vast universe, where differences often divide, a human and an alien princess had shown that unity was possible. Together, they had rewritten the story of Gyr, proving that the future belonged to those brave enough to embrace change and celebrate the strength found in every unique soul.